She trained in France, baked in Spain, and is now raising the bar in India with her pastries and pizzas. Everybody meet Sana Cabra, the co-founder of Bene, a CA turned pastry chef.
Hi. So everything happened in a very meant to happen way. I was in IB, so everyone I studied with went to university abroad, and we did like SATs, and we all trained to be able to leave the country and go abroad to do our undergrad. And my counselor in my school, who was meant to send out my predicted grades to universities, miscalculated and sent the wrong grades. So I didn't get into any of the universities, not even the backup universities that I applied to. And I was not a below average student, I was a above average student, but I didn't get into any universities. And that was like, I was shocked because we were a group of 96 people in my class, and 6 people were very intentionally staying back in India, had like a plan. 3 of them were becoming doctors, 2 were becoming lawyers, maybe 1 2 I don't really know what they did, but every single friend of mine went abroad. And I was just like, oh my god, what do I do? And that's when we went to another, like we went back to a counselor, and he was like, I used to love math. I grew up with my granddad teaching me math, and so that was my favorite subject. And we went to this counselor, and he was like, oh, she likes math, her aptitude is good with math, she can become a CA. And my dad's jaw dropped. He was like, meri beti CA ban sakti hai. And that's when he was like, okay, so here's the plan, do whatever you want. If you can't figure what you want to do CA. And I have gone crazy going to like this art teacher, being like, no, I want to be a shoe designer, that's my passion, like I love shoes, let me become a shoe designer. Then I was like, okay, let me become a chef. But we went to catering college, and I saw the facilities, and I was like, I can't imagine myself coming here. I don't want to, not to downgrade any space, but I just wasn't able to imagine me doing that. And my mom was like, okay, if you want to become a chef, spend the next 30 days at home cooking. We'll tell the house help to stop cooking. You make the meals for the next 30 days.
You had to work for it.
I didn't do it. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's not the passion. I have to sit and make dal roti sabzi for you every day, or even like that's just not what I'm feeling, no. So I said no, and that's how I became I got into chartered accountancy. It was literally like a situation where I didn't know what else, and I'd never even heard of CA, so I didn't know what I was getting into. I ended up taking accountancy classes for 11th and 12th that you do because I was an IB, I didn't have it. So I went and took those classes. I went and enrolled in HR college, which for me was a whole different world because of all the what happens in India in your colleges. You have to run around, you have to wait in lines, you have to be in the heat, and we actually were in air-conditioned schools in Ambani.
Right.
So it was great, but it was a whole shift compared to what I was meant to experience. So when I was done with, and by that time I was already baking on a weekly basis. It was like something I loved doing. When I grew up,
something you love doing always?
Always, because my mom is actually like a trained baker, and when we've grown up in Africa, me and my sister with my family, and over there for just a short time, my mom used to do like cakes. So she would make these extremely whimsical cakes for people, and she was the only person that time in the city we were living in making those cakes. So she would do like a Mickey Mouse or a Minnie Mouse, or all these really like cartoon characters, and people would come and be like, wow. And I was a kid who was in the kitchen always holding this bowl and licking the extra colored icing. There was a phase where we moved from Africa to India, and there was a slight period of separation with my parents where they took a little time to move, and I think that's when I started baking, because that's kind of what gave me that feeling of that connection with my mom. And that's when, I mean, of course I started with like premixes, and then I just kept experimenting. And then I would take stuff to school to give my friends, my teachers. And then I started working while I was doing my CA. I was in college. At the same time, I was doing an internship. It was kind of a job. I was working as a content creator. because in college you don't really need to go to college.
College.
And then eventually started going for my articleship. So it was 5 years after school that I was working in Bombay, and the whole time I was baking on the side, and the whole time I was very consistently on every weekend, like hustling to find the time to bake. And then, like, even if it's a Saturday night and we have a plan to go out, I would still get home, find the time to bake, make something, have one or two orders every single weekend from
Oh,
friends,
wow.
family, through and through. And it was something that made me feel really good. When I finished CA in the first time, my mum and my dad were just like, wow, we are wowed. And now, if you say you want to do something else, we are not going to come in the way, do what you want.
So you didn't have to cook at home for 30 days.
No, I just did CA for 5 years instead.
That's not much.
A good exchange. And yeah, then in fact it was my mom who encouraged me. She was like, listen, now's the time. Go do
Yeah.
whatever you want. Don't
Wow.
hold back. I think you have the potential. I worked in a company that was doing food distribution, and I helped them with like their finance bit. One of them told me, make a table, rate like all the options you have, all your life goals, and actually get a calculation of what makes the most sense for you to do. And I did that, and it made the most sense for me to stay in chartered accountancy. And still I was like, no, but I want to follow my passion now. So I found a course, I applied. It was at the CIA in the US. I paid up, and then my visa got rejected.
That's
And
another story, okay?
So
You
the
can
day
say.
the visa got rejected, I was like, what? How in the world? And the guy told me, I don't believe that you have done CA and now you want to go and want to become a pastry chef.
Yeah.
It's not credible enough. I don't think you're being genuine. So I'm not giving you the visa. And I was cold. Like, I was like, huh? How can you not give me, I'm going to be paying to do this course, coming to your country anyway. And the same day I got a call from École de Caisse in France saying, hey, we have still a spot in the course. It's something I just stumbled upon. I don't think École de Caisse was that well known all across the world at that point. And they called and they were like, you had applied, but we never heard back from you. And I was like, this is a sign, it's fine. Till now, everything in life has happened the way life has chosen, not the
Yeah.
way I have chosen.
you
So
took
let's
it.
go with it. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing. A 3-year course, a bachelor's degree in French pastry. And before that, because once I said yes for that, they said, okay, but now it's happening 6 months later. So we can offer you a space in our culinary diploma, which is 6 months. You do that first,
Then-
and then you can move on. And it was amazing as an experience, because I think as a person, I was exposed to really high quality products, food. I was introduced to the world of culinary, arts for the first time, and it really opened up my eyes. I was wowed by everything I was eating. So I think that's also a part of me. I do want to explore the culinary side. That's also why here at the Bene Kitchen, I love being at the pass. Like, if you come in on a busy night, which it has been for the last 4 days, it's me and Simon in the back, and we've got my mum and dad helping with the people and the seating and
Oh,
the
wow.
billing, because we weren't prepared for such a big show up from people, so such a big response. But yeah, and then 3 years of my pastry course was also another level of adventure, because so my school was in this tiny village in the south of Lyon, which is a little southeast of France, and it was in the mountains inside a castle. So I would
Wow.
walk up every day 6 in the morning, up the hill to the castle. That was our school.
Wow.
And it was just a dreamy life. Like, so it was 6 months in school and then 6 months at work, alternating like that for 3 years. And my first internship was at Plaza Athénée, so that's where I had the most grueling experience, because 1, it was all in French. 2, I picked the best kitchen, the best hotel in all of Paris. So I think it's part of being Indian and part of being like from a school where everyone's an overachiever, that you don't want to just go to any place and do your internship. You want to go to the best
Best,
place.
of course.
You want to have that best name on your CV to show that yes, I've done the best. It definitely took a huge toll on me because I think I cried every single day. I was getting like stuff thrown at me because I wouldn't understand what they
Really?
were saying. Everyone was talking only in French.
So did you learn French eventually? You
Eventually,
did. You did.
I learned French, and eventually, that experience was also what shaped me as a chef. So while I was there, I think I cried every single day. I hated work. I faced a bit of racism, in my opinion. Like there were instances where I could see that okay, I'm not being treated like everyone else. Every other intern was able to progress, but I was made to do the same thing. I would spend hours just chopping hazelnuts. I remember chopping hazelnuts, spraying tarts with egg. My whole nose would be full of egg wash because I would be in this room spraying egg on all the tarts, and at the end of it, I would just be like, I can't believe this is my life. I would be doing 200 tarts a day. I would like chop kilos and kilos. At the end of it, I ended up with carpal tunnel in both my hands
Oh.
because I got it on one hand, then I started using the other hand. Now I got it on the other hand.
It's a very grueling.
It wasn't easy, yeah. And I think this industry, this profession in general, is like that. That experience, though, later, so very recently, in 2022, when I was leading a kitchen in Bangalore as the chef, that's when suddenly I was like, so much of my etiquette was built in that kitchen. So much of my precision and my attention to detail and my want for everything to be perfect and being so careful with things, it all came from there because that kitchen was a Michelin level kitchen. They had such like strict ways of working. They were so particular about the smallest things, and that kind of became my value for
You took on everything.
of how. And so it took me a few years to then look at that experience and be so grateful.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. right?
Definitely. And then my adventure continued. I think I really tried to make the most of my 3 years. So I came back to Bombay for a 15-day break, and I worked in Love 15's kitchen just for 15 days, just to understand what's happening in India.
Right.
Then I went back. I did a 1-month job in a company called Arista, which is the world's largest frozen bakery product company. So they do like huge scale waffle and croissant productions. And I was on the team where I was like interacting with the suppliers, so going and seeing the factories where everything is getting made. And then I went back to my school. Then I did another course. So that's when COVID happened. So I went to Spain and I trained in a school. So I was doing my internship in a school run by a chef who specializes in ingredient replacement.
Okay.
So that's again something very big that kind of shaped what I'm trying to do today. His whole concept was making pastry that's lighter, healthier, and tastier. And what he basically was doing was understanding the role of every ingredient, understanding what are the main techniques that are required to build different textures in pastry, and then recreating that with ingredients that you want. So it's no longer about, okay, I went to pastry school and I did 6 months, so I did a year and I have my recipe repertoire, and I'm just going to take things out and maybe replace one ingredient. No, it's about how do you just understand what's going on and say, okay, I want to make a mousse. Like for me now, I actually do this. I say, okay, I want to make a chocolate mousse. I check the kind of chocolate, the percentage of fat, and I build my own recipe around it. I want to make a strawberry mousse. I want to make a mango cream. I just look at the ingredient. What are the percentages of the fat, the water, the protein, and based on that, build a recipe that works texture-wise, flavor-wise for what I'm trying to create. So that's kind of something I learned there while I was in Spain. It was once again a beautiful experience being in another country. I spent 6 months learning Spanish before going there, and then turns out in that part of Barcelona they don't speak Spanish. They speak Catalan, and they were like, your learning Spanish went to waste. And the same thing happened when I was in school. I dropped French. I said, I'm never going to need French. Let me do another language. And I dropped French. And turns out I ended up in France and very much needed it.
So everything you planned,
yeah.
just the opposite has happened.
Always. I think so often I felt like it's not in my hands. My life is really, you know, somewhere being directed.
Up to the pastry gods.
Yeah. So I've just gotten into this space where I'm like happy with the flow. It's not always easy. And then yeah, I did my third year. In my third year, I ended up contacting a chef who was in this very small village, a chef called Richard Hawk, who was into gluten-free, vegan and lactose-free pastry. And I just called him up. I just messaged him saying, listen, I'm really, really interested in coming and working with you. So, you know, I have a month's time before my school gets over. We're working on our project, but I have enough time to come and work with someone. So he called me and he was like, listen, I'm working on a book. I need help. Come.
Okay.
And he was living in this other very small village, hardly like 2,000 people living in the village. There was no hotels there.
Wow.
It was in the middle of the mountains. He was working on his book. He had moved there with his family. He had 2 kids. So I moved there. I lived in something called a tiny house, which was like a box.
Okay.
It was like, you know, one of those containers for transport.
Oh.
So it was something like that, and they had made that into a house. So it was some lady who was all about living organically, naturally.
Minimal.
Very minimal. She gave me that space. So I was living in this little tiny house for a month. I was cycling to his house every day. And I was working on recipes during the day. In the evening, I was babysitting for his kids. And there were weekends where like someone in the village would be like, come, let me take you to a vineyard. We would cycle, go to a vineyard, try some biodynamic wines, have some great cheese. It was once again a dream life.
Right.
And yeah, I got to learn a lot with him as well, because one-on-one working with him, doing everything to make sure his book's recipes are, you know, perfected. It was again a great experience. And then I finally decided that okay, the last adventure. So I had done quite a bit in France. I traveled a lot, and I hadn't gotten the chance to do a lot of the sea. And I love the sea. I love the beach. So I decided to go to the south of France and find a job there. So I did a 6-month job in the south. I think it was 6-8 months almost that I was in the south of France, and I was working in a pastry lab. It was a classic pastry kitchen where there was a good production happening on a daily basis. By then I was pretty fluent with my French. I was feeling, you know, pretty confident in France, in kitchens. So when there, I learned a lot while I was there as well, how to manage large productions, how to have enough in your storage, how to be able to supply to multiple kitchens while running your own kitchen. And then I got another opportunity before leaving, where I worked with 4 Michelin star, like four really big chefs. So there was a pop-up happening. It was chef Alain Ducasse, Albert Adria, who has been awarded as one of the world's best pastry chefs for his innovations, Jessica Prial-Pato, who is one of the best pastry chefs. She's again been awarded for her concept of being natural, using natural ingredients, not adding too much sugar, skipping everything that's overly sweet, keeping it like, you know, organic. And that's where I worked with Albert Adria directly, which was amazing. Like it's something, I think in the 3 years that I was in France, I tried multiple times to get in touch with his team and try to get an opportunity to you know, do a small internship or anything. But COVID had happened. Their restaurant that was called Tickets in Barcelona had shut down for a bit. So I didn't get the opportunity, and somehow, as the last thing I was doing in France, it just came up, and
obviously you didn't plan for it.
I didn't
happen.
like everything else. And it ended up being one of the nicest experiences, because the chef over there, Jessica Prial-Pato, as a female chef, was, you know, someone who became an example for me, someone who was working really hard, making sure her team was getting a good salary, making sure that everyone was treated really well, speaking to me with a lot of respect in the kitchen, which for me was then,
New?
it was new. It gave me a lot of confidence about myself because she actually made me feel like I'm good at what I'm doing, which is not so easy to come by. Someone in France who, you know, you're anyway looked at as an outsider, and then to get some kind of reassurance that yes, you know what you're doing, you're good at what you do, that was great. I'm forever grateful. In fact, she opened up a lot of opportunities for me, but as life would have it,
I think we already know what's coming next.
yeah, so at that point she said, come to London. I'm going to, you know, start consulting at a hotel. I want someone to represent me over there. At the same time, my parents came to France and they were like, what are you doing? You know, you had to come back and start your own thing. So what happened? And somewhere something, like some things happened, and this company from Bangalore, this couple who was starting a coffee shop got in touch with me, and they said, we want you to head our entire food division, build the entire pastry for us, and you know, we'll ensure that this is like the moment for you where you'll get your fame and all of that. And while that didn't happen, the what came out of it was I moved to India, not directly to Bombay, and I think that was great because it gave me like you know, a step before coming back home. And I think if I had come directly back home, for me it would have been like, oh my god, from being super independent in France to coming back to living with my parents. While I fully appreciate my parents and they're so open-minded, it's still a big shift from living for 6 years alone and doing what you want and please, how you want and please, to coming back to India. So it was a good way for me to move. It was also a great way for me to be able to set up an entire business at someone else's expense. So right from deciding the equipment that goes in the kitchen, the layout, what the menu is going to be, training the first team, putting SOPs in place. It was an amazing experience. I got to do everything, be the head chef, and do it at their expense. So I may have also made mistakes, but I also learned a lot, and I think in general we all learned a lot in the process. But it kind of brought me to a place where I felt like, okay, I've done so much for someone else. I'm working so many hours, putting in so much, and now I think I should do it for myself. So I finally came full circle to feeling ready to do my own thing.
So you started Bene in Bombay in which year?
In we're in 2025 now, so 2024.
Oh, just last year.
Yeah. So 2024 is when I got a cloud kitchen in Bombay. Actually, I had met Simon, who was the chef with me in Bene, in the village where I was studying in France. And we would eat pizzas over there really often. And I would be like, you know, if we had this in Bombay, it would be a game changer. It's a great pizza. And one day he made me try this pizza called the Cubano, which was inspired by some South American street food. And it immediately reminded me of the Bombay masala pizza at Pizza by the Bay.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my god, if you bring this to India, people are going to love it. Like, I think that the progression was in Humble Bean in Bangalore. I basically worked on food pairing with coffee, where there had to be a lot of focus on the sugar levels in the pastry. You had to be very careful to not have very sweet and overpoweringly sweet desserts, because that kind of kills the coffee. So we were balancing the amount of sugar and sweetness levels in the pastry so that you could still taste and enjoy the coffee with every sip and bite. So we actually curated food pairing menus where you know, I would decide on the pastry and the ingredients of the pastry based on the notes of the coffee and the aromas coming from the coffee. So there was one coffee that came from I'm not sure the region. It was an Indian coffee, but it had this like notes of something like a chili, you know, like something that was leaving this burn in your mouth, kind of. and it was like a black pepper almost taste. And that's also because the coffee was growing in a region that had black pepper trees as well. And so I curated this mango dessert infused with peppercorn, which with every bite of that, the coffee would taste even more flavorful, and really it opened up the notes of the coffee. So I think because I went into so much of like, the flavor, the sugar levels, that's where I kind of realized that for me as a chef, what I want to do is create products that make people feel good.
Right.
Like you go to a place and you eat a meal, you have a dessert, and you leave feeling like I shouldn't have, or I'm
Yeah.
feeling
You
really
feel
heavy.
really heavy.
You feel a bit
Yeah.
sick. You have, you feel the need to then compensate with a homemade meal.
Right.
After eating out a few times, you want to go back home and have a few meals at home because that feels healthier.
Feels balanced out.
Yeah,
right?
feels better for you. And I think my goal was, then it became very clear that I want to make things that feel good. I don't want you to eat my product and feel bad about it. I want you to eat my product and feel great about yourself, not
Right.
feel guilty, not be telling me that no, I can't eat dessert. I'm off dessert. Like it became, especially in Bangalore, people are very health conscious. So a lot of people were coming in and not having dessert as
Dessert.
much as the savory things, and that's where I was like, no, when I make a cake, I want people to be able to eat it without thinking about the calories, without feeling bad about eating it. So at Bene, the concept is that Bene means good in Italian, and the whole point of the food that we're doing here is to make you feel good after you eat the food.
Right.
Even with the pizza, we've worked a lot on getting the dough right, so it's really well fermented. It
Right.
feels light. So when you're done eating it, you don't feel like you have an upset tummy, which is what happens most of the times when you eat a pizza
Right.
outside nowadays. So, and with the pastry, we're doing a lot of ingredient replacements.
Yes, I've tried your macaroons, which are eggless.
Yes.
I didn't know that could happen.
Yeah.
I almost didn't believe you when you told me that this doesn't have any egg.
Yeah.
And I was just surprised. That's what really got me to find out more about you. Tell us
Yeah.
about that. How's the response been?
So honestly, that's something that happened in COVID. I was home for about 2 months in COVID, and I didn't know what to do, and I said, okay, I'm going to crack this. I think in general, there's a big demand for
Eggless
eggless
dessert.
products
Right.
and desserts. Macaroons is something that I would define as my introduction to French pastry, because I'd gone for an exchange trip to France in 2011, and my hosts were like very, very open hearted, and they took me to La Durée and they bought me this case full of macaroons.
Wow.
Like I'd never seen this, and I was like, whoa, one macaroon is €2, and these guys have got me like a box full of
Wow.
macaroons. So I don't know how much they spent on it, but I felt so special. Ever since, that's been a product that I've wanted to recreate. And I think my goal with the eggless macaroons was it shouldn't taste like there's something off. There's usually like this aftertaste.
Right.
And I did so many trials just to get that right balance where you have the structure without having the aftertaste. And in fact, this was before I did that ingredient replacement.
Of course.
Course.
This is way before you started.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it was
In the middle.
In the middle of it.
Right.
I had just come for 2 months during COVID, and I quickly ran back. But in the 2 months I was here, I worked so much on this, and it was really like it was a lot of effort, to do that. But it made me feel like this is possible.
Right.
You put your mind, as long as you put your mind to something, you can achieve it. And that's kind of been me since right from CA, right? I decided, no, I'm not going to do it multiple times. I've decided I'm going to finish it off in one go, because I anyway don't want to do this, so I may as well get it out of the way.
Right.
And that was my motivation to go through it quick. So yeah, eggless macaroons happened because of that, and till date it's a product that I love to do. It comes with a lot of love.
Quite a
And
hit.
yeah.
Quite a hit, right?
Yeah,
of course.
we're selling out of those also at the shop every day. So it's definitely true that there's a big bias.
In France or in India? Or
I mean,
everywhere? Worldwide?
I think I don't think it was as much in France. It wasn't about girl or boy in France. It was more about, oh, you're not French. That was the bias over there. But here in India, like I was the head chef there setting things up, but I was being questioned on my knowledge very, very often, being told that I don't know things very often, and I really had to keep standing my ground and saying no, but this is what I want. No, but this is, and it took a lot of like, I think you need this kind of courage to just be
Right.
like, no, I know what I'm saying, and still at the end of it, you won't get that approval till the man in the organization says, okay, listen, I believe her, so you need to. And so our experience with setting up this space with almost like majority of our vendors has been so my mom is also helping me out here. There's just like a lack of respect when speaking to women,
Right.
which you feel, that they're not respecting you. They just think that you don't know.
No.
And they tell you to your face कि आपको नहीं पता. And you're just like, but I've done this. Like, I've worked in another place. I've seen the performance of the equipment there. It's not like this. There's something wrong. With our contractors, with some of our equipment suppliers, we've literally had, we've now used this as a technique where we deal with it first, and when it comes to a turning, like a point where it's enough, that's when I call my dad and I'm like, now you take over. And now you call up as a, listen, this is the last warning. And that's when things kind of progress. And while he's not the personality that, would do this, but just the fact that he's a man makes
Yeah.
things work. And it's so apparent, like it's on a daily basis. It's happening every single day. When we're following up for some payments, for some events, हाँ मैम हो जाएगा, मैडम बोल रहे हैं ना आपको, आप बार बार फोन कर रहे हैं, this that. Another thing that does make a difference, I think, is whenever I tell anyone, yes, I'm opening a place, I'm a pastry chef, or I have a place, I'm a pastry chef, I'm a chef in general, okay, almost everyone doesn't take you seriously. And the minute I add in, I'm also a chartered accountant, everyone's like, oh, oh, okay. Then you must be knowing what you're up
Yeah.
to. Not just being someone who's, running a business and starting their own thing and having trained abroad is just not enough. I remember when I just moved to France, and a few times I told people that, yeah, I'm also trained as a chartered accountant. They were just like, okay,
Yeah, whatever.
it doesn't matter. We don't even care. Over here, people's face and expression
Yeah.
when they hear that changes. So, I mean, I'm grateful that I had that experience and I have that as a base.
Right.
Uh,
Nothing goes to waste, right?
Nothing,
Everything that you
nothing
study.
at all. It all comes like I told you. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and it's all going to come together.
Yeah, you're
very
the
beautifully.
living example of everything happens for a reason, like in its
Yeah.
true sense.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone who does watch this also knows that you came through, you knew what you were doing, you know this is not working, and you know that is not working. And it's amazing to see that you put this place with a lot of love
Yeah.
and a lot of experience.
It's yeah. It's not that I don't think I would. I think I'd like to say that it's not been very clear from the start what we want to do. I came back and
Happening.
I wanted to do something. I think I had some defined things in my mind of what I want my pastry to be like, what I want my niche to be in. But what this place would end up like is something that once again just happened.
Right.
This place is equally me, Chef Simon, and my mom putting in a lot of love,
yeah.
energy, effort, thought to bring it to what it is. So it's not just me. And yeah, I think even the fact that Simon has come here has been a very
Right.
like meant to happen.
How did you
know.
convince him that okay, this what you made equals to Bombay masala? That's it. You just said that. And
No.
He bought his
I mean, it
tickets.
was a long journey with him as well. It wasn't just a direct thing. Maybe we can go into that at some other point. But I think with him, it was very clear from the beginning that he wanted to go to some part of Asia, Southeast Asia. He didn't really know where. but he'd always wanted to experience, you know, not a European life because he's born and brought up and grown up in Europe, and he's always appreciated the people, the kind of like I think everyone is just so much nicer here, especially to white people. We have a bias very much,
Right. That's
and
another story for another time.
yeah, and I think for him it's also been something that was meant to happen for him.
Right.
And somehow it just came together while I was working in the south of France. He came to the south of France, he found a shop. I went and worked with him. We created some products together. We ran a small shop called Sando the second half of the day. So I would work in my job from 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then I would join him at 6 p.m. and work till 12 in the night
Wow.
running the shop. And that was a whole experience in itself. And I think that's where we kind of realized that, okay, as two people were able to see building something together. I hope Bene is one of the things that I built, one of many things that I end up building, but I think it was a perfect way to get started, especially because I think the audience in India loves something savory, chatpata. When you come up with something only sweet, it's a little tough to immediately grab everyone's attention. But when you have something savory and something sweet, it's giving us a much better response, I think.
Two sides of a coin, and you've got both, right?
Exactly. So for me, it's been, I'm super grateful that I managed to have him come here. He's super grateful that he's gotten the opportunity
Right.
to come here and, you know, set this up with me. And yeah, I think it's just a start of hopefully something big.
What would you like to say to all the women bakers who are at home, also not feeling confident to start big? Or what advice would you like to give them?
I think to just be resilient and believe in yourself. I think there's, especially social media right now makes us feel like, oh my God, everyone is doing so much that how will I stand out? But there's enough people to believe and support in you as long as you believe in yourself. So I think it's very important for you to feel very strongly about what you want and kind of be resilient and stick to it, because eventually things will just start rolling and you won't even know when you go from being someone who's struggling to have 1% trial stuff to selling out. So I think even I didn't expect it to happen. I think I was struggling till just a month ago, and you just have to be resilient and trust. I have always trusted that the universe has a bigger plan for me. But I think it's all about just believing in what you're doing, knowing that what you're doing it means something to you. Because if it means something to you, it's going to mean something to someone else as well.
Those are some really nice words by Sana. And that's how Sana baked her way into our lives, one pizza, one pastry at a time. And kudos to her courage for starting something so beautiful and something so close to her heart. We're so glad to be here. Thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it, guys. On to the next one.